You're telling me my Pokemon can make babies?
I love this guy. He's so big and fluffy and he squishes so nice. I can just go like wah, wah, wah. Eggs. Not only are they an important part of a healthy diet, but they play a pivotal role in competitive Pokemon. Ever since the mechanic was introduced in Generation 2, players have been able to breed for Poké-Eggs that would pass down some of the hidden values, once called determinant values, of the parents to the child. To make things simple, if you had a parent that was really good at attack, and you had another parent that was really good at speed, then you could breed those two Pokemon together, and the Poké-Egg had a significantly higher chance of being really good at attack and speed. Over the generations, this mechanic has been tweaked and overhauled, largely to the benefit of the players. In fact, in almost every generation, it's been made easier to breed for Pokemon with more controlled values, now allowing them to pass down their abilities and some of their moves too. But even though this awesome mechanic has existed for like 25 years, most people didn't really care about it. There just wasn't really a lot of reason to do breeding. I mean, some people would try to breed for a perfect Pokemon that had the best stats possible, but people just kind of cheated back then. I mean, it was really easy to just cheat in a perfect Pokemon, and it only became easier once we got to Generation 5, where people were literally just trading themselves perfect Pokemon that they could generate on a web page, on their phone, in a phone app. It was like just magic. You could just be like, and there was your perfect Pokemon. So there wasn't a lot of reason to breed unless you just wanted to do it for fun. What did I just say? I mean, yeah, people would breed their two favorite Pokemon together. Maybe they had some interest in seeing which Pokemon could be bred and which Pokemon couldn't, or what cool moves you could get by breeding two Pokemon together with different awesome move sets to get really low leveled Pokemon with like a really powerful move. I mean, that's super cool, right? Anyway, the point I'm trying to get at is that people just didn't really care about the mechanic because it didn't have anything to offer them until the release of Pokemon X and Y, which absolutely changed everything about modern Pokemon. I mean, it didn't just introduce the fairy type, it didn't just make a bunch of backend changes. No, the most important thing that it ever did was simply exist on the 3DS, because the 3DS wasn't a hackable console at the time of X and Y's release. It also didn't allow players to trade their old Pokemon up into Pokemon X and Y, and even once that functionality was added a few months after release, you still couldn't use those Pokemon in the World Championships, which created a huge incentive to finally learn how to breed. We had the very first time in history that there was a World Championship when people actually knew how the game worked, and that people were not allowed to hack in Pokemon. For the first time ever, Pokemon players were breeding and having fun with it. I shouldn't say that, but competitive Pokemon players weren't the only ones picking up breeding for the first time. No, casual players wanted to breed too, because now it was very easy to do the Matsuda method. The Matsuda method is when you have a Pokemon from one nationality breed with a Pokemon from a different nationality, and that would allow them to have an increased shiny chance. So now legitimate access to shiny Pokemon was also possible for casual players in a way that wasn't really reasonable in the generations before, especially because the shiny chance was abysmal in the first couple generations, and it was really bad, and I don't think I ever saw a single shiny in Gen 2, but I did see one in Gen 3, and I killed it because it was a different color. It was a coughing, by the way. The most important tip that people were sharing, and of course the reason for this video's existence, is the automatic egg hatching method. You see, eggs would hatch after a certain number of steps were taken, so if only there was a place where you could just take a bunch of steps without doing anything at all. And fortunately, there was such a place. Lumiose City, the City of Lights. In the center of Lumiose City stands the Lumiose City Gym, which is quite obviously supposed to be a reference to the Eiffel Tower, which makes a lot of sense given that Kalos is like a big reference to France, and Lumiose City is a big reference to Paris, which is also called the City of Lights, or maybe it's the City of Love, but maybe Lumiose City is also the City of Love. Let's just try not to think about it too much. Right outside the gym actually had a pretty interesting mechanic where the camera would always stay fixated on the tower itself. So if you started moving sideways, then the camera would reorient and your sideways would change to always be moving sideways to around the circle. You would move around the circle. And this meant that if you slotted a quarter underneath the joystick of your 3DS, you would be able to move continuously until your next egg hatched or the joystick broke off your 3DS, which actually seems to have happened quite a lot and is probably the fault of this method. This revolutionary mechanic became the talk of my high school, and everybody who's anyone was using it to breed for their shiny Froakies and their perfect IV Dittos, and they were doing it in the hallways, in class, instead of doing their homework, while doing their homework. They were doing it all the time. Everybody in my high school was breeding. And all of this reminiscing about breeding has got me wondering, can I do that in real life? So I went to France with eggs in the winter. And aside from just testing if it's physically possible to walk around the Eiffel Tower in an uninterrupted circle, I thought it would be fun to calculate how many miles or kilometers one would have to walk in real life to hatch an egg based on the distance you travel when circling the tower. As I journeyed through Paris, I was greeted with wonderful sights of P-Dub in the streets, Florgus in the gift shops, and a bunch of unattended bicycles, likely brought over by fellow breeders. I even got to see the SS Anne departing, just like in the video game. Upon arriving at the Eiffel Tower, I took my eggs out of their incubator and put them in my jacket so they would hatch twice as fast, due to Slugma's ability Flame Body. When circling the majestic tower, I saw a horde battle of P-Dub versus a Trubbish, and a used potion on the streets.
You didn't even need to use the item finder to find it.
While there was plenty of construction, nothing stopped my gradual orbit around the tower, and before long, I could feel something jiggling in my pockets.
I can hear it. I can feel it. It's hatching. Little Slugma's hatching. Oh my god. Oh my god, he's hatching.
And there it was, my beautiful baby Slugma finally hatched. I think it was a shiny, guys. So now I just have to play through a bunch of Pokemon X to get to the tower, because even though you can see the tower from very early on in the game, they won't let you walk into the center area because of an obviously fake blackout, so you have to play through about half the game before you're allowed in that center circle. And what a beautiful tower it is. Now to painstakingly count how many steps it's going to take to do one complete orbit around it. After walking around it at least a dozen times, I can confirm it is 186 steps exactly, no matter where you're walking from. Yes, that's right, outer circle, inner circle, it's all the same 186 steps no matter which way you're walking from.
How did all these squares make a circle?
According to Google Maps, the path I took around the Eiffel Tower is about 900 meters. So by dividing our 900 meter journey by 186, we get roughly 4.84 meters per tile. The amount of steps it can take for an egg to hatch in Pokemon is dependent both on the species within the egg and a little bit more as it can range slightly. A Slugma egg takes between 4,884 steps to 5,140 steps, but the average of this is 5,012, so the distance required to hatch a Slugma egg in real life would be 24,258.08 meters. Wow, that's a lot of meters. Wikipedia says the preferred walking speed of humans or animals, not sure why animals were included in this, is about 1.42 meters per second, meaning a Slugma egg may take around 17,083 seconds or 4 hours and 45 minutes to hatch, which is way shorter than I expected. In order to try and confirm that the outdoor proportions in Pokemon were roughly the same between different areas, I tried to measure the player's home, which was 10 tiles across, meaning that it would be about 50 meters, which obviously doesn't make much sense given that houses in real life are not usually 50 meters across, especially not small ones like our player home, and it's 12 tiles on the inside, so all I really felt like I proved with this is that I wasted my time, and nothing conclusive can be drawn from any of the calculations that I just did because nothing in Pokemon really makes any sense. But hey, I had fun! I took a nice trip to the Eiffel Tower, I had a bite at a cafe afterwards, and I even got to re-explore a little bit of the Kalos region when making this video. So all in all, I would chalk the trip up to being a total win-win, especially because I finally got to try the famous French cuisine, the escargots.
So, I'm right here in a playground right in front of the Eiffel Tower, or the Lumiose City gym in beautiful Lumiose City. Looking for some 10-year-olds to fight. I was really hoping I could beat some kids for money. I'm a little out of money right now. You know, I'm not doing fights for fun, all right? I'm in it for the mun, bitch.